We're live. Hi, Ian. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, we're going, and I'm expecting the worst. Is that okay? And if anybody
We
starts,
should be. Well, I don't know that we need to expect the worst. I mean, this is the whole point, isn't it?
okay, do we get all philosophical and get into the whole? Well, we are where we are, and if you only have is the present, it can't be worse than it is now, but it's not going to be better than it is now. Can we go here?
Well, somebody told me this week, so they said you'll know when you know, and I'm like, damn,
I'm gonna have to
there's
sit
some
with that for a
more.
little bit. Yeah, yeah.
But yes, let's share some things around expecting the worst because I know that I have some relatability to that. Um, But I think I want to hand it over to you first to find
Seeing
out
as
what.
seeing as I floated the topic,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think that's only fair.
it is fair. All right. So I've noticed a little theme lately, and I think we've maybe talked about this topic, but from a different angle before, like expecting the best. I think is what when I asked you, have we done this before? You're like, no, but this is what it sounds like. Um, and yeah, so the theme is like I've had a series of meetings that I've been like scheduled to attend, and I've been spending an inordinate amount of time worrying about those meetings. And I think about the outcome, about what's coming or whatever. And I think a lot of it has to do with my own like performance anxiety, like making sure, am I doing well enough? Am I performing at a high enough level? Am I doing a good job? That kind of stuff. So what this just reminds me of is that performance equals feedback, and feedback equals bad stuff. It's the worst. And I'm gonna ask you a question, and it's a little loaded, but when you were a kid, when you got feedback, what was the feedback about?
Oh, that's a really tough question for me to answer because I actually don't have a lot of childhood stuff. So I immediately go to school. I probably got feedback for talking too much. Who'd have thought?
Yeah, we get in trouble. We get
Yeah, I
feedback
was in
when we
trouble because I would talk too much. Yeah,
we get feedback when we do things wrong. We rarely get feedback when we do things well.
because it's
So,
expected that we'll do it well, but we have to, yeah, drill down on the do better.
like your parents, don't do that. Stop doing this. Would you just be quiet? Like it's not like you're getting like, hey, you're the best kid in the world and bravo. I don't know. I didn't have that experience growing up. And I don't think it was intentional. It was just like you heard more often the things that weren't going well versus the things that were. So when you're called to the principal's office, or you're called to have the meeting, or you're called for your performance review, or whatever it is, my mind gravitates towards, oh, what did I
I
screw up?
mean, we,
Where did I go wrong? Like, am I going to get in trouble? Like, whatever. Like, I go there first. So then I spend a lot of time thinking about that stuff and worrying about the result of it. And rarely is that thing that big a deal, whatever the thing is. And usually I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. Um, and a lot of times I'll end up focusing on what I already know that I'm having trouble with or I'm struggling with. When there was is 90% of what I've done has been like great work.
and
So
yet that 10% is focused on. Yes.
it's probably even less than that, but that's where I go and that's where I hang
Okay.
out. And even if I've been given the shit sandwich approach of feedback, like, hey, you know what, you're doing great with this, but okay, this stuff you got to work on.
But
It's not
thanks for
working.
doing everything. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And then they're like, hey, you know what? But it's all pretty good. I'm focused on that chunk in the middle that wasn't great. Um, and that's where my headspace is. So then I end up spending like nights awake or waking up thinking about stuff like this. And so I'm kind of being tongue in cheek a little bit about expecting the worst, but that's where my mind has gone, and that's my predominant thinking. I don't like it.
Yeah, and in fact, when you proposed this topic, I was like, I'm thinking, I went, I actually think the worst first. That was where I went to. I move out of it fairly quickly, but it is interesting that the default is there. I'll think the worst on the silliest things like, why didn't that person call me back? I'll think the worst.
Mm.
I've been doing it to family members. Um, my Some of my in-laws live about 4 hours away from where we are, and some of the Rells are going down to them to visit them for Christmas, and we weren't invited. Well, it wasn't actually that we weren't invited. The people that are going down 4 hours drive weren't invited. They just decided they were going. We just decided we weren't going. But there was a tendency to think the worst, that we were being left out.
Mm.
Like, it's in these sorts of things that my thinking, regardless of the fact that I went, well, I'm not sure. I mean, there would be no reason for us not to get an invite. So I'll just ask my mother-in-law what she knows and when she's heading down and all those sorts of things. And she could hear my thinking, and she literally said, Chris, we didn't get an invite. We just decided to turn up. So that default thinking of the worst, and I know for me, it's a bit of a protective mechanism, which sounds a little bit wacky, but if I'm already protected, if I'm already got some scenarios around what the worst is, then I'm not going to be surprised in a bad way. I might be pleasantly surprised when I'm proved wrong, but it's a protective, it's sort of like protecting my heart. It's like so that I won't get disappointed, or that I won't be insulted, or I won't be surprised in a bad way. And therefore I'm kind of ready for it. It's like, oh, well, kind of half expected that kind of approach, which actually closes a lot of things down.
Mm-hmm.
But I justify it to be a protective thing. You'd think after all these years of work, personal growth work, I'd be over it, but I'm not. It still keeps coming in. I also find it gets ramped up when I've got more anxiety on board.
Mm.
And it makes it much harder to squash it, to pick it up and remove it. Because often I can think that thought, and as soon as I hear, I had the conversation literally yesterday with my mother-in-law where she went, Chris, we weren't invited. Anyway, I can immediately go, yeah, that's okay. I'm quite resolved with that. I'm not got any angst with anybody about that. That's not a problem. Renz is working. He's on call. He's working after Christmas. He gets the public holidays off, but that's it. I'm around, but, whatever. We're not really taking a holiday, so we wouldn't be getting in a car and driving for 4 hours anyway. So if I've got the anxiety turned up, I can't make all those reasonable, conscious thoughts come in. And we're pausing here now for just a moment.
Because real life just happened.
Because real life is happening. So
I'm on Facebook Live.
We will just wait for this to
just keep working. I'll come see you when I'm done. Okay. 8th phrase and then a conclusion, and then I'll come up. Amazing. Okay, I get it. I can read the sign language. Good job, dude.
Oh, is that the worst that could happen on a Facebook Live?
I'm not worried about it. I'm not. I'm not
You
expecting.
know,
However, I did expect him to come downstairs at some point to pop in. But
I didn't maybe expect it that early, but yes.
yeah, me neither. But I'm resonating with your like the kind of protective aspect of it, and I think it's natural that we want to keep ourselves from feeling that negative energy. Like if we had the experience as a kid that every time I got called to the office, it was a bad thing. Now when I'm going there, I'm going to feel it again. So what can I do to feel better about it? And for me, it's always been about trying to prepare myself, but I don't think it serves me as well as I would like, because I feel like if I'm more prepared, then I can answer those questions and I can show that I'm, doing the right things and all that stuff. And it's so much wasted energy.
It is wasted energy. And the other thing I think it does is it creates a bit of a negative bubble around us. So that I find that when I'm getting paranoid, which is essentially what it is, I just get paranoid about what others think, whether they're what they're going to say to me. I run a whole bunch of paranoia goes off. If people don't, I don't know. I mean, I don't get too caught up in the social media and the likes and stuff, but if the paranoia's turned up a notch, oh yeah, no, that messes with me as well. So there's this need to um, be enough puts almost like a lack energy around. It's like I have to try hard. I have to be something that I'm not, and it's not actually appealing for others.
No,
If we show up completely naturally, then people, regardless of the flaws, regardless of the I'm having a bad day, regardless of any of those things, people actually appreciate the genuineness more than they appreciate the perfection.
And I think we've talked about this before, that perfection is a made-up standard anyways. Where is the scale of perfectionisticness that we all have to meet? I don't know. Is it written somewhere? I haven't seen the book.
I never got the book. It must have got lost in the mail.
Oh man.
I also wanted to go back on what you were saying about that. When we get that feedback in that sandwich, it is interesting that we default to the negative, and yet there are two positives in that exact example.
Yeah.
And we just don't pay attention to the positive. It's much harder to hear and much harder to absorb.
I think part of that though happens to be the way that we give and receive feedback. It's not done in a way that is really digestible and receivable, and done in a bite-sized way that you can actually do something with. I wasn't going to go here, but I think it feels like it fits now. So I have a colleague and friend, and we actually deliver a feedback model as part of some of our coaching workshops. And the intent around giving and receiving feedback is, when you have a conversation with somebody, you actually ask them if they want feedback first. So at least it's like a contract. So they're saying, yes, I would love feedback on whatever just happened. Okay, cool. And then you get them to tell you what went well, what was tricky, and what they would like to do differently next time. That way they get to empty their cup. They get to highlight where they think they did well. They get to highlight what was tricky, and they can highlight what they would want to do differently next time. So when they're done, now it's your time to give them feedback. And what you do is you build upon what they've already given you, and you tell them things that went well. Tell them one or two things that were tricky, and then one thing that they could do differently. And you ground everything in observable facts. It's not opinion. It's not judgment. It is, I saw this, and this would be better for this reason. So it's tangible, and it's bite size. You're only grabbing one or two things for them to work and grow with. And on top of that, it's their decision whether or not they decide to do anything with it, because you cannot agree with them or agree with them. It's fine. But it's your decision whether or not you decide to actually
change it up,
make a switch for yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. And then it's not the crap sandwich approach that you're resisting anyways because you haven't had a chance to offload. And oftentimes you already know where you struggled. So being able to voice specifically what it was, you're able to build upon what's already there. And it's not as combative or shameful or whatever is happening inside you at that moment.
And that's great professionally. I totally hear you on that professionally. And I've got some other versions of getting feedback. Like if I do a workshop and I ask for feedback, my initial response to some of the more critical type of feedback is a bit, oh, this is uncomfortable. And then I go, oh no, this is the gold. This is where I can improve. And I run with it. Professionally, that feels really quite easily. When it comes to personal and a bit closer, being the time of year that it is at the minute, it can be a little bit harder to do that. I mean, it's, you're sitting around the family Christmas table. You're not going to sit down with the, I don't know, the sister-in-law or the brother-in-law or and go, now, I just want you to identify the bit you could have done a little bit better there. And which bit you might improve on for next year's Christmas lunch. Like in personal circumstances, it's not always applicable. And if you've got kids running around and you want to pull them up because of whatever reason, it makes it a little bit trickier to do such a formal process.
It doesn't have to be as formal as you think. Like I've done it with the kids and they've caught me in it too, right? So what went well today? Tell me the things that went well for you. Instead of them diving straight into, I had the worst day ever. Oh my God, this was horrible. That was horrible. And I'm like, there had to have been other things that happened today that were good. What was good? And then you get them to put some of those things out there. And then you can ask them, okay, well, what was hard about that? And then you get them to tell you about that. And then, you know what, that's good information. How could you try that again differently next time? It doesn't have to be as formal as I presented it. And it's definitely very wooden when you first start, but it does have value and can be used if you just massage your language around it.
Yeah, completely. And then I then adapt that a little bit further because I'm luckily in a stage of life where I don't have any young'uns around. So it's just me and my husband, and yay for that. We get to just do double income, no kids. Oh yeah, I don't have anyone just
you don't have anybody standing right beside you over your shoulder right now? Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm going to come see you.
No, please. Please. I'm at the end. What do I do?
I'm going to come see you.
No.
Put it down, go play. I'll come see you.
Okay.
That's what he wanted.
You said the magic word, go play.
What's the worst that could happen, really? Yeah.
So the thing I do now is because me trying to control what others think about, whether I've done a good enough job or whether I'm enough or all of those things, I know that I just let that go, and then I focus in on myself. So I actually give myself feedback every day in a slightly different way. I journal 3 or 4 really simple things every morning. What I'm grateful for, what is my reflection from the day before? And it's not even just the day before. It might be a reflection on a moment. It might be a reflection even on the walk I just got back from. It's just a reflection that I'm like, that's worth noting. What is it that my intention is? And how do I feel about that? Because we can set an intention, but it's really cool to know what you actually feel. Oh, that feels a bit scary. Oh, I don't know if have I got enough for that? And by identifying those things, it's almost what you were talking about with the kids, with it allows me to kind of give myself daily feedback of where I can do better, what I can do differently, what I noticed, and have an intention to do something different. It doesn't have to be better. simply different.
And
so that's how I apply it to me personally.
And celebrating the successes. So it sounds like you're using like the gratitude or the what went well part of your day, whatever you're reflecting on, as a kind of a spotlight of success, which is the part that I think we often miss in noticing ourselves and what we're doing and how well we're doing most things, but we don't give ourselves any credit for that. At least that's not where our focus goes, because the negative seems to have quite like a magnetism to it and a focus that it shouldn't have. That it should be proportionate. So we should be spending our 5% of the time with what I could
the negative
versus holy crap, look at all this stuff that I've got going on that's, I don't even have to think about it's going so well.
And even in a room full of people, there'll be one person that'll throw the negative. That's the one you'll focus on, yet the 99 other people who just think it's amazing. Where do we put our focus? So there is a real choice, and I'm not sure. I am yet to crack the code of the default to negativity. I am yet to crack that code. However, I am much quicker at turning it around to, well, what else could it be? So even if I default to that, what else could it be? What else could the explanation be that I'm not hearing back from that person? Let's go back to the Christmas thing. Well, what could have the other explanation be? That nobody got a bloody invite. Everyone just decided to turn up. So yeah, and that's in that ability to be a bit more expansive and a little bit less locked in.
Yeah, it's that
to the negative.
It's the lack version of a situation versus the abundant version. So how can I see this from a different perspective? What do I gain from not being invited to this? Like, where's the value in me not having to drive 4 hours to the whatever, right? Like there's other value there that yes, you might feel like you've been slighted somehow, but that may be the 5% of the 100% that you could be focused upon.
Correct. So, there's a few things at the moment that for me, I haven't been able to lock in a date that I want to lock in for February, which is hinging, like it seems to be the hinge for all these other events that have to happen. And that's why I did chuckle at the comment I was given just yesterday. You'll know when you know. It's like if I focus too hard on this one piece of information coming through, then I'm missing a whole bunch of other experiences while I'm waiting. I still have to wait, but it's how I approach that waiting period. So instead of expecting the worst, that it's the dates are going to be pulled on me and I'm not going to go and whatever the story is, I could just enjoy what I've got today, and I'll know when I know.
You'll know when you know.
I mean, it's so much truth in that little phrase, isn't it? It's like, of course we'll know when we know. And it does. So when I did apply it to my thought patterns yesterday, it did allow me to go, okay, well, I won't make that extra phone call now. I won't send that extra message now. I'll leave it and I'll trust my intuition and when I'm supposed, when it would be good to re-ask that question or resend that message or whatever, but not do it through fear, not do through the lack.
And I think that's the like attracts like aspect of it too, right? So you said, the one negative person in the room or the one person who wants to spout the negativity, everyone will like, hey, I've got another negative story that will beat your negative story, right? So there's kind of like an attraction to that kind of stuff. So if you're focused on the fear and the kind of the pushing of it through, it may kind of attract you to it.
It kind of warps
everything
what
else
can be attracted in, right? Because even if you force it, it'll be under obligation or not quite in flow or not really what's best for you, even though you go, that's the thing that has to happen. When in actual fact,
insisting that somebody go out with me because it should happen. And don't worry if you enjoy it or not. It has to happen.
It just has to happen.
We have to do it. That's not working out for anybody.
No.
No one's gonna have fun.
No. So yeah, there is a bit of that default, and have not broken through that completely. But I find I come with a lot of defaults that I've learned and constructed over for many reasons, and there's a whole bunch of stories around why that's the case, irrelevant. The approach I take is that some of those I don't seem to be able to crack the code and to break them. So I'm just adopting in more positive things or more things that make me feel better or more things that bring me a little more joy on top of it. So I might still have the expect the worst. And yet I also have what other possibility is there?
And I'm trying to embrace the fact that my story tends to be worse, inevitably worse than any reality that takes place. So if I can just reinforce, so I think this is part of my problem here. So that's the story. I go and do the thing turns out to be fine, and it's not a big deal. But I don't spend enough time afterwards debunking that story and going, that went really well. There's a lot I can take from that. Okay, great. That's the new story. Not next time I get called to the office, I freak out again. It's having to focus on, yes, you're doing good work. Yes, you're doing, like, you don't need to worry so much. It's way better than you think. Reinforce that story.
Yeah. And that's that reflection, isn't it? And we skip over it when it's the positive. And yes, finding ways to actually deliberately engage with the positive is key. It really is. And also we decide things are negative when they're not actually. That's the other thing that I find contributes to expecting the worst. Like, is it the worst that we not traveling 4 hours for Christmas? I don't know. Don't know that it is. So that's the other thing, is that we interpret something that's the worst. I'm going to dump my husband in this one because at work he often will default to a message that comes through. Pile? Well, he'll default to a message that comes through from his manager, and he'll go, "Oh, bloody blah 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 blah. This means I'm going to have to do that." I go, "Does it? Does it?" He goes, "Oh, probably not. I'll send this other person a message and see what's really up." Okay, then.
Oh, let's play the telephone game. That's going to work well. Yeah. Yeah, so we have a preconceived filter because we had a message that was similar once and it meant that. So then, I guess this means that again. Yeah, it's
that's right. Grumble, 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 and then it changes the energy at home. Sure, the message comes through at, I don't know, 6 o'clock on a Friday night. Yeah, not particularly fun. But then it kind of changes the energy in our family world because of the reaction. And so, catching those reactions and turning them around is really key to help alleviate the expecting the worst. Because I don't know, I haven't stopped doing it yet.
Hey, I didn't say we were fixed. I said I had a topic. I didn't say I had it resolved. I'm working through it too. I'm getting better, I think, but it was definitely thematic for me this past week or two. So
Yeah.
I wanted to put it out there.
There we go. Awesome. Well, there we go. We've yeah, I think I mean I think it's a good reminder to just make sure that we, even if we're expecting the worst, that we just allow some positive to be recognized at the same time. That's the simplicity.
And you know what? You'll know when you know.
Thanks, Ian.
No problem.